All right, guys, it is 4 o'clock on a Tuesday. You know what time it is. It is our weekly Q&A, and today I'm joined by a special guest, old friend of mine, Dan Titus, head of content at Yahoo Sports. For those of you that don't know, Dan and I go way back to our days of cranking out news at Fantasy Pros, and now he is Mr. Big Time over at Yahoo Sports. So it is my pleasure to have you here, my friend. How are you?
Zach, what's up, man? Always a pleasure to talk to you, not only on mailbag shows, but anytime we can talk hoops, man. I love the opportunity to do it. I think I just got a raise, head of content at Yahoo Sports. I like it, man. This is a great day. But no, I'm Dan Titus, do Yahoo Fantasy Basketball. We'll go way back with Zach that we started Fantasy Pros. Zach does everything, if you guys don't know. This man was an editor well before he was doing the writing, and now he's a jack of all trades. So it's great to see him and his mailbag show and jump on and answer some questions for some of the fantasy hoopers out there.
All right, brother. We are definitely excited to have you, and I know people in the chat are excited to have you as well. So let's get on with it.
Let's do it.
Let's jump in here. Whoops, having same issue as last week here. There we go. I have way too many guards on my team. Who should I drop first? And more importantly, who should I trade? This is a 12-team, 9-cat head-to-head, punting, rebounds, and turnover build. And I don't see any guards. All right, hold on.
I'm about to say, this is an interesting guessing game.
It is. All right. Same guy, so let's just pivot to his next question. Should I trade Kyrie and Melton for SGA? I think I know which way I'm leaning, but let's hear from you first, man.
Man, I always lean to the side that has more production. So 2 for 1. I get the appeal of SGA, top 10 per game value, and just been a monster all season. But I think Kyrie's still very good. He's a top 12 player this year. I would take the Kyrie and Melton side.
Yeah, and so would I. And correct me if I'm wrong, but Kyrie top 3 players since KD went down, I think. Just dropping 40 burgers left and right, showing up early and, talking with Russ at the game. I mean, just he's balling out every night. So, yeah, that's the side I'm going with as well. Moving on, Daniel, thank you for joining. Daniel is on the show every week. Welcome, Mr. Titus. Yes, Mr. Goat Titus, and thanks in advance for getting in here. His question, should I drop either Fultz or Slow-Mo in order to activate Olynyk off of IL or just cut Lunch Lady Land in a 10-team 9-cat? What's your opinion on this?
That is a tough question. I mean, I love Slow-Mo right now, but I would say that Karl-Anthony Towns is probably give it 9 games away from returning. Fultz looks really good right now, coming off a 10 assists, no turnover game against Philly. Man, at this point, to be honest, like unless you really need to go after someone in stream, I probably keep Olynyk in IL for now because there's a chance he could get moved at the deadline, which is coming up on Thursday. So I would continue to rock with Fultz and Slow-Mo for the time being. And then once we get past the deadline, activate Olynyk because right now this is Walker Kessler's spot. He's going to be coming off the Kelly Olynyk's going to be coming off the bench. So I don't see as much appeal in Kelly Olynyk right now as I did earlier in the season.
I don't either. And obviously he started the other day alongside Kessler when he came back, and he played, I think, a total of 15 minutes. So I think he's a cut to me. As you said, maybe keep him in your IL until, if your roster allows that kind of thing. It's not like an illegal lineup or something.
Right.
But if you need to cut him. I think the upside for Fultz and Slow-Mo is much higher. And I'm a lot lower on Karl-Anthony Towns coming back within 9 games. I think
it's going to be longer.
Yeah, I do. I'm a little pessimistic about it. And Slow-Mo has just been ridiculously good, even when he's not scoring. So, all right, moving on here. One more from Daniel, and this is fantasy hot player. What's your guess on probability that Jonathan Isaac helps managers in the fantasy playoffs? How attractive is he in a keeper league? What do you think, DT?
I think he's actually kind of attractive in a keeper league. I mean, I've been impressed with what I've seen in limited minutes for him thus far. We know what he can do on defense. He's also shown an ability to stretch the floor. I like him in a keeper league more than I have confidence in him actually being a viable fantasy asset come fantasy playoffs. right now, the Magic, they got to make a move at the deadline here. I just think that there's a logjam of players in that front court that might go against him. Sure, he could be productive in 10 to 15 minutes, but I think he's more so going to be a guy that you're going to stream here off and on, depending on the lineup changes. Bol has seen less minutes. So if Bol or Mo Bamba leave, then I'd say, yeah, he could definitely make an impact. But for right now, there's just too many bodies there for me to actually rely on Isaac for the long term.
Yeah, I agree. And it is nice to see how productive he's been, but his minutes have been 10, 8, 9, and 10. And in 5 games that he's been available, one of them he ended up sitting out. So, yeah, I am less optimistic about Isaac as well, especially for the playoffs. I am interested to see tomorrow, though. They play the Magic play Philly, and Wendell Carter popped up on the injury report this afternoon with that right plantar fascia strain, which is the same injury that kept him out for a month. So I am interested to see if he ends up missing some time, maybe if Isaac ends up getting a boost in minutes, or like you said, if they end up making a move at the trade deadline. But otherwise, I don't think Isaac is going to be anything more than maybe a steal streamer. I think he's had a steal in every single game he's played. So otherwise, yeah. All right, moving on. Jazz front court is a hot topic. Got a trade offer on the table, 12-team, 9-cat. Dame and Kessler for Drew and AD. This is an interesting one. What do we think here?
That's some heavy capital right there. I'm gonna take the Drew Anthony Davis side because I feel like Anthony Davis is an exponentially better player in fantasy than Walker Kessler. Drew Holiday, still a very good fantasy player, not as good as Dame, but I think the gap between Anthony Davis and Kessler is just too far to ignore. I would take that in a heartbeat.
You would take it in a heartbeat, so no hesitation then.
No hesitation. Give me the Drew Anthony Davis side.
And no concerns about Anthony Davis's health moving forward.
No. I think he was out for 5.5 weeks. I think that, or more than that. I think that he's healthy enough. Yeah, there's a little bit of a minutes restriction here, but like he might take a couple of games off. But what you're getting is arguably the top fantasy player for the first couple of months of the season. The Lakers need to win. He's going to need to be on the floor. So I think they're going to be even more reliant on AD down the stretch. Sure, there's injury concerns, but you're hitting the home run right now. Like, just get the better players. And, Dame's missed some games too this year too. So, I don't think he's absolved of all injury concerns there either. So, yeah, give me the Drew AD side.
All right. I like it. I agree with you there. I don't think it's as clear cut as that. I think I would maybe think about it, but yeah, I definitely agree with you on that.
Do you think Dame is playing above expectations right now? Like, is there any chance that he can regress from that he's going to tone it down here? Because he's on a ridiculous run right now. Like he's what, top fantasy player over the last 1-2 weeks, maybe? I think it's 2 weeks.
Yeah, I don't think he can. Nobody can keep this up forever. I mean, he's on like a James Harden, Kobe Bryant type of like scoring 40 points every night, every other night type of tear that we don't see all the time. But of the players in the league that can do this, I think he's one of maybe a couple that can actually pull something like this off for 2-3 week period.
Yeah, so I'd argue this is maybe a sell high moment for Dame.
Oh, okay.
So that's why another reason why I would kind of say, like, I think Drew Anthony Davis, assuming all health is good, would be a really nice addition to your team without seeing the rest of your roster. Like that's a really good squad to build around.
Interesting. I like it. All right, moving on. I'm going to drop Tommy B after tonight. I'm looking at Langford and KBD. So Keita Bates Diop. This is a sad state of affairs if you're looking at KBD. Who do you think is a better option moving forward? What do we think here? Are we dropping Tommy B for one of the Spurs maybe guys?
I'll be honest, man. I might have to hold on Thomas Bryant on this. I don't know that I want to drop him just yet because AD wants to play the 4. He always wanted to play the 4. I think that there's a lineup opportunity here where Thomas Bryant and him could play alongside each other. Thomas Bryant is a double-double waiting to happen. I don't know about this Spurs team, man. Like, if Josh Richardson gets traded, I would say, cool. Langford actually does have some fantasy appeal. I don't know that I would do D-Hop yet. Like, I've seen him picked up in competitive leagues as a streamer, but Job, I don't know. I just wouldn't go that. That just seems like you're digging too far into the trenches, even in a 12-team format, which I'm assuming you're in 12 teams or more. I would hold Thomas Bryant here rather than looking at those guys.
Totally agree with you. And especially, I know LeBron can say a lot of things that he doesn't mean, but if you read anything, if you read anything into his recent comments, he was praising Thomas Bryant. He was
Yeah.
praising his athleticism. He was praising his two-way play, as you alluded to. And yeah, there is an opportunity for them to go with that double big lineup. So I think that's absolutely a possibility that he sees some, consistent minutes moving forward. And the upside is, top 75 guy for Thomas Bryant.
Yeah.
And Langford and KBD don't even come close to that. So
No.
absolutely. And if you strike out on Thomas Bryant, you're not missing out on somebody that you can't get equal value for Langford.
Neither of them are must adds in fantasy in any format right now.
Exactly. All right. Any value on Drew Banks rest of season?
Drew Banks. I like that. I like him as a block specialist. I know, Zach, you tweeted about it probably a few days ago when he's still riding this heater of, I think it's up to like 10, 11 games now of at least one block. So Nurkic, he's been battling this calf injury throughout the season. Maybe he continues to miss games here and there. I still think Drew Eubanks actually still has fantasy value in deeper leagues just because he can get you those blocks.
Yeah, is he a guy you're holding through the trade deadline in case we see some movement there in the front court?
Yeah, Portland's pretty interesting right now, right? Like they're on the outside looking in. Jeremy Grant wants an extension. He turned down their original offer. Maybe if, in the next several of games, if things don't go their way, I don't think they're going to trade Jeremy Grant, but who knows? Josh Hart has also been mentioned in trade circles. I don't think, as long as Nurk is there and he's seemingly healthy, I don't know that you need to hold Eubanks the rest of the season. But I do think he's a deep bench stash that if you're low on blocks, he could certainly help you. So, like, I have one team that has Rudy Gobert that I was banking on him being a shot blocking machine this year, and he's been absolutely not that. Yeah. I picked up Eubanks just because I need those extra counting stats in the block category. So I could see it. I could see certain scenarios where it would be valuable to hold on to Eubanks for the rest of the season.
All right. I like that. Moving on here. Omar says, do I stash Vassell or Oubre in a points league? I need to drop one. I'm 7th out of 10. All right. So it's time to make moves for Omar. DT, what do we think?
So Kelly Oubre is on the trade block. I don't think that the Charlotte Hornets are going to extend him, just given his age and where they're going in the standings right now. Seems like they want to invest in PJ Washington and Jalen McDaniels, but I haven't got an update on Kelly Oubre. Have you seen anything recently on how his hand and his wrist is doing?
No, nothing recently that I've seen either.
And Devin Vassell, I think he's kind of on ice too, just given that there's no reason to really force him back with Spurs clearly tanking. Also haven't gotten a clear bill of health for him as well. So if you need to drop one, I'd probably lean towards yeah, it's tough. I would say probably Vassell, only because if Oubre is moved, he could move to a contender where he could potentially get minutes, and I could see him contributing right away, assuming his wrist is good.
Yeah, that's where I was leaning as well, just for that reason, because if both stay on their current teams, there's no incentive for either to play their guys down the stretch. Both teams are terrible and heading for the best lottery pick they can get. Vassell is not going to get moved unless something absolutely wild happens. There's no chance of that. So, yeah, Oubre has the best shot to pull something off here. And I think Vassell potentially could be out even longer than Oubre. I mean, I know both are kind of uncertain right now, but yeah, that's where I'm going as well. All right. Daniel again, Killian Hayes assist to steal rate is hard to find off the wire, but man, his low points and bad field goal percentage anchor his value. And the fact that, I'll add this in here too, the fact that Alec Burks has now been in the starting lineup over top of him. So is he a hold in a 12-team 9-cat, especially with the coach coming out and saying that lineup decisions will be quote-unquote fluid rest of season?
To me, I think you answered your own question, Dan. And great name, by the way. Good Dan's think alike. I think he is a hold because you're not going to find those assistant steals on waivers. And even though Alec Burks is starting above him right now, Alec Burks is a veteran on a tanking squad. So Bogdanovich has been rumored to be a potential trade candidate, as well as Alec Burks. Burks is, I can't even count how many teams he's been on in the last 3 or 4 seasons. But if I would say I would have more concern about it if Burks stays through the deadline. But if he's moved, Killian Hayes is going to be locked into 30 plus minutes, starting point guard, should be good counting stats for you, despite his bad field goal percentage, turnovers, and low points. But yeah, I think the assists and steals, you're not going to find that in a 12 team league on waivers. So I would still hold.
Yeah, Hayes, one of the steals leaders over the last month. To me, it is concerning, though, that it's been 2 games in a row and, they came out and said, hey, these lineup decisions are going to be fluid moving forward, when you really thought, man, maybe Hayes is going to be a guy that he's kind of auditioning for his next team, and maybe they'll see what they can get out of him and trade him to, kind of free up that log jam at guard. So to me, it is a little concerning that they're putting Alec Burks in there, especially when they're not winning any games. I mean, what's the end game here for starting Alec Burks? That part kind of worries me a little bit.
Yeah, and looking at the Detroit roster, so behind Cade Cunningham, who would be naturally the starting point guard, Jaden Ivey can also play point guard, he's a combo guard. But then after that, it's like Corey Joseph. So are they ready to bail on the Killian Hayes experiment yet? Like, I feel like he's gotten a little bit of a longer leash because he has improved this season. Like, his 3-point percentage is up from last year. He's been more efficient. He's just been a better basketball player. So I don't know that I think that Detroit has totally given up on him, and the lineup is fluid, as you mentioned. So I think that we could see him still, jump into the starting lineup. Then maybe he goes to the bench, just as they kind of assess their roster going forward here into Thursday.
All right. Interesting. And so a little bit of intrigue here around Killian Hayes. Moving on, we have Superman in the chat. Clark Kent, rest of season overlook. Denny, Grand Slam, Avdia, Kelly Olynyk, or Trey Murphy III out of Virginia, right?
Yeah. So Trey Murphy, you got to hold him for I think his outlook looks great just because of the injuries that have been happening for the Pelicans. Herb Jones has kind of regressed this year, hasn't been as good of a fantasy asset as we expected, but Trey Murphy has been pretty steady all season long. Does a little bit of everything, and I think he's actually a fixture of this rotation that will continue to go forward. That's not going to change. Love his outlook rest of the season. And Denny, since the Hachimura trade, he's averaged a double-double. He's a steals guy. And the maturation of him, I think, is really exciting. Even though he's not starting, he's getting a lot of minutes, and I think that's going to also continue through the rest of the season. They really like him in Washington. In the off chance that they don't re-sign Kyle Kuzma next season, he's going to go through the moon if he's not there. But I think they like what they have in Denny. Kelly Olynyk, we touched on a little bit. Playing limited minutes, is on the block. Maybe he starts outside of Walker Kessler for the remainder of the season. I don't know. I think Kelly Olynyk is probably the murkiest of this list.
Yeah, I agree with you on Olynyk. For me, I think I'm going for the Grand Slam here, the Denny's breakfast joke aside, and I'm taking Avdia. Last 4 games, 16.3 points, 9.5 boards, 1.8 steals, 57.9% shooting, 1 triple, career high 25 points last night against the Spurs. You absolutely love what you're seeing from him since Hachimura left, and you're getting a guy here that can go for 15 and 10 every single night. He can get you close to 2 steals a night, and efficient shooting percentages. Obviously, he's not going to give you everything you want here. The assists aren't great. The blocks aren't great. Free throw percentage isn't amazing. But this is a guy that's solid enough to give you consistent top 100 value. And I don't think he's going to have quite as many ebbs and flows as somebody like a Trey Murphy, who has been good when the Pelicans are healthy, but his value kind of fluctuates a bit based on who's in the starting lineup. So for me, it's going to be Denny.
Yeah, I think so. Zion's going to be coming back in a couple weeks. I'm curious to see what those Pelicans look like, assuming Brandon Ingram is still healthy at that point, because you never know with that guy. But yeah, I think Trey Murphy certainly will benefit if there's an injury, and then we still have to see because we really haven't seen the Pelicans at full strength for much of this season.
That's right. Okay. Moving on here. Traded Brunson, Kessler, and Slow-Mo for Giannis, Lowry, and Looney and 9-cat back when Giannis missed 5 games in a row. His owner was tripping. Would you have vetoed this? These are always tough, man. Like, I always hate these questions saying, like, hey, would you have done this or would you not have done this? Because then if I say, man, no, you shouldn't have done this, or yes, you should have done this, I mean, you can't go back in time and change it. But, I mean, what would you have done here? To me, I'm never vetoing a trade unless this is something just absolute blatant collusion. If a guy's tripping, if a guy's worried about somebody, then, I mean, that's part of playing the fantasy stock market, in my opinion. If you're worried about somebody's injury and you gamble and it fails, then guess what? You made a stupid decision. Now you got to live with it. What are your thoughts on that?
I agree. I don't veto any trades if I'm a commissioner. I think we're all grown at this point. If someone makes a trade, you got to own it, be accountable. And as you mentioned, if there's any collusion, obviously that needs to be checked. But otherwise, you got to let these things go through. And to be honest with you, as much as this may look like a landslide, I actually don't hate the guy that got Brunson, Kessler, and Kyle Anderson right now. Like Lowry, I just wrote up a piece on him the other day, or did a video. He's fading fast. He's only averaging 8 points, 4 rebounds, and 4 assists in January. And that's not a guy I want on my roster come the fantasy playoffs. Kevon Looney's no longer starting, even though he's still been productive off the bench. He's seeing less minutes now. So, I don't think that he's as high as he could have been, weeks ago. And Giannis has been one of the biggest disappointments in fantasy in terms of a 9-cat league. So assuming this is a 9-cat league. So, I have Giannis on a few different teams. It's been killing me. Like, sure, he gives you these spike games of 50 points and 10 rebounds and stuff, but he's tanking your free throws at an epic level. He's not really doing the stuff defensively that he did in previous years. And he's missing games too frequently. So I don't know. As much as this may seem like you got over with it, I think rest of the season, that Brunson, Kessler, Kyle Anderson's looking pretty sweet.
Yeah, I agree with you. I don't think that was a one-sided trade at all. No, I think that was totally fine. All right. John, I'm not sure how to interpret this. Is this saying John Collins' realistic trade for Cat? I'm not sure if it is, but let's open it up there because I think that's interesting. If you have John Collins, would you take a chance and trade him for Cat?
Yeah, I think I would.
Okay.
Because I think that Cat's going to return at some point before the fantasy playoffs. There were certainly question marks. I mean, I think that Gobert was the worst fantasy player when they were all healthy, and D'Lo, but we know who D'Lo is. But if you can get Cat for the fantasy stretch run, like I think that's actually pretty beneficial, and I would take him over John Collins. This is assuming you're in good standing in your league, and you're sitting pretty comfortable that you can give away an asset like John Collins and play that waiting game. If you're in the hunt, I would not do this trade because you need as much production as you can get. But I think there's a very good chance that John Collins stays in Atlanta. But you never know. The guy's been on the block for 4 years now and hasn't been traded. So who knows? Maybe this is finally the year that he gets dealt. But yeah, there's plenty of suitors out there. I've seen the Mavs, the Celtics. There's another team in there too. Was it the Pelicans? So I don't know. There's some options, but if he goes to a contending team, there's a chance that his value goes down with less opportunities to score. But I'd be willing to deal him if I was in good standing in my league.
Okay, so what you're saying then is if you need to take a swing, this is the move for you. If you're first place in your league, Collins is on your roster, are you trading Collins for Cat, or are you staying pat with what you have?
It's a risk, but I would play the long game there.
Okay.
If you get Cat, I mean, look at the value that you're getting in return wise, relative to their per game value. Like Cat when he's healthy is way better than John Collins. So, yeah, I think it's worth the swing.
Okay, interesting. I disagree on this one. I'm a little, again, like I said, I'm a little more pessimistic about Cat, and I do wonder how he plays when he returns after being away for so long. We saw at the beginning of the season where he was putting up, top 100-ish numbers because the fit alongside Gobert was a little awkward. It seemed like things weren't really panning out. And then he did ultimately start to improve a bit. But I do wonder if there's any sign of rust or any sign of trying to get reacclimated to that new sort of lineup again once he returns. So I'm a little more pessimistic about that. I don't think I would trade Collins for him.
Man, you wouldn't trade for 20 points, 8 rebounds, 5 assists, 2 threes. Oh man, that is way better production than John Collins. But I understand the hesitancy just because he's coming off an injury. But again, I would say that I would be more concerned if that said Gobert. I would be like, hell no, don't do it, because I think it's going to get even worse for Gobert once this team is healthy.
Fair enough. Yeah, man. If you can guarantee me he would be putting those numbers up immediately coming back. But I mean, realistically, he's coming back after the All-Star break. So you're getting him end of February. To me is, I don't know. I just couldn't do that with the long game there. All right, moving on. I'm in a league with no IR. How long can I keep holding KPJ with no timetable to return? Yeah, this is a mess, isn't it?
I feel for you, man. Just got an update that there is no update, which is which is always concerning. I mean, you got to hold. You just got to do it, man. I feel like you got to hold here. I don't know that I'm ready to say I can cut bait yet, even though there wasn't much of an update on his injury with his foot. He's too good to just throw on waivers, man, because there's going to be sharks in the water as soon as he hits the waivers. So, I would play defense right now just by holding on, putting him on your roster, keeping him on your roster.
Could you argue, though, that playing defense might be putting a guy out there that's going to maybe sabotage another team? I mean, if Kevin Porter Jr. if he's out forever, if not forever, but if he's out for, let's say he's out past the All-Star game. If I told you right now he's going to be out through the All-Star game in a no IR league, are you dropping him?
Through the All-Star break? No, I'm not. I'm not dropping him. After the All-Star break, I wouldn't drop him it depends on where it'd be great if I knew where he was in the standings, but I would not hold him unless I get word that he's not going to be available for the fantasy playoffs, because that's what, 20 points per game, 5 assists, over 5 assists, tons of usage. Sure, field goal percentage isn't great, but he's been a pretty good fantasy player for much of the season. So I wouldn't just drop him yet without knowing for sure that he's going to be missing significant amount of time. It's only been a couple of weeks right now, so even though there hasn't been an update, I don't know that I would be that aggressive to drop him just yet.
And so, just staying in this same vein here, who are you picking up? KJ Martin at 30% on Yahoo, or Tari Eason 28% rostered on Yahoo? Because both of these guys have seen a pretty significant spike in value since KPJ has been injured.
So KJ Martin, you're just going to be getting points and rebounds primarily, maybe an occasional steal. Not horrible at free throws, but he's not particularly good. I think Tari Eason is the one you want long term. He is a fantasy stud per 36 numbers. Now, granted, he's not going to be getting 36 minutes. Well, maybe they do if they decide to tank. But Steven Silas's rotations have been awful this season and maddening. But he's a 15-10 guy with 3 stocks in per 36 numbers. So to me, this is the fantasy guy that you want. He contributes across all categories, minus assists. So yeah, if I'm going for somebody long term, it's definitely gonna be Tari Eason. But that's actually a pretty interesting question. Would I drop Kevin Porter Jr. for Tari Eason? I don't hate it. I don't, because eventually the Rockets are going to mail it in. And if they mail it in, they're going to want to play Tari Eason a lot more. And you were on record, I think it was a year and a half ago. Was it Kevin Porter Jr.? It was Kevin Porter Jr. You called him being a league winner. And sure enough, the Houston Rockets mailed it in late in the season, and that's exactly what he was. I could see the same thing happening for Tari Eason.
Yeah, Eason's a guy that I love coming out of LSU, just the two-way play. And as you mentioned, man, the fantasy stat set is it's something you dream about.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I think some people might consider that kind of a spicy take, drop KPJ for Tari Eason, but I don't think that's a crazy, outlandish take at all.
We don't know what's up with KPJ until we get more information. I don't hate the decision.
Very interesting. All right. Dan coming in with the fire takes today. Let's see. Preston says, hello, who has the better rest of season outlook between Melton, Collins, Eason, there's Eason again, and Rui? Who we like out of this group?
Melton. It's got to be D'Anthony. Now that Tyrese Maxey's coming off the bench, I think that pretty much secured Melton as his fantasy floor. He'll give you steals like at the guard position. He's one of the best defensively, so I can't not have D'Anthony Melton over all these guys. Collins is a bit inconsistent. Eason needs injuries to sustain his value, and Hachimura is just dealing with a logjam of players that have higher usage than him. And I don't know that he's going to make the impact for the Lakers that, at least from a fantasy perspective, that we may see in real life. So yeah, give me Melton here.
Agree with you on Melton. I think the minutes are much safer for him. Now, if I could guarantee you that Eason would have 28 to 30 minutes a night, are you going Eason or are we still sticking with Melton?
I would still stick with Melton there. The threes and just the security. I think that the position that he's in, and I trust Doc Rivers trusts him versus I don't know who the hell Steven Silas trusts these days. I would feel a lot more confident about Melton going forward.
All right. Love it. Moving on. Pick up Mo Wagner for a possible Wendell Carter sideline again. We just talked about this earlier. Sure, if you need a pickup, that's a good preemptive strike, I think.
I totally agree. And he's dropped 20 in his last 2 games. We've seen what he's done with extended minutes before. So, yeah, I think this is definitely a streamer. Not only a streamer right now, but you could luck out into much more if he's going to be sidelined for much longer than that.
Agree with you. All right. Outlook on Danny G with KP back. Do we expect him to continue to start at center? I mean, he was doing it before KP got injured, so I think they like that double big lineup. They've won, 6 in a row now? Things are looking
6
pretty
in a row.
good. They were winning before he got injured, so yeah, I think they're going to keep it rolling.
I see no reason why they would change it up now. I would probably put Gafford more into a better Drew Eubanks because he rebounds a little bit more consistently. But he's really just a block specialist. And I like Gafford. I think you could definitely use him as a stream as long as he's starting and has those consistent minutes in the rotation. I think that was always the problem with Gafford, is that he wasn't consistently in the rotation. But now that they're committed to it, I think you can certainly roll with Gafford going forward here, assuming he's not injured, for a long period of time.
All right. Should I drop TJM now? Yeah, I think you probably should have dropped him a couple days ago, to be honest. Not just because of the Sunday night stinker. I mean, that was a garbage game. He had 2 rebounds and 3 assists through the first 3 quarters, and then kind of got some garbage time there in the fourth quarter. Because they were up 14 at halftime and then just absolutely melted down at the end of the game to Memphis. But yeah, I think you should drop him just because, if you've held him this long, maybe you can think about it a little bit more. But you don't play again until Thursday. So you have Thursday, and I think they play Friday and Sunday, if I remember. So they're squeezing those 3 games in, but you don't need to hold him throughout the week and kind of waste that valuable roster spot for 3 of your first 4 days of the week. I think
that's a really good point. It's really schedule based right now. And, in 12-team competitive leagues, I probably wouldn't drop him just yet. Oh, oops, wrong screen. I thought I canceled out of the live stream. In competitive 12-team leagues, I probably wouldn't drop him just yet because Nembhard has kind of been fading a little bit. And I don't know that I want to cut him just yet. There could be a little bit of a minutes restriction for Halliburton straight out the gates. I would drop him in 10-team leagues, though. Shallow leagues, certainly warranted. As long as Halliburton's back, he's going to be the starting point guard. Not as much value for TJ McConnell, but it's been a good run for TJ McConnell.
Yeah, definitely. We salute TJ McConnell. That was he was holding it down there pretty well. The Orange Couch says, should I keep IQ? This is your boy right here. You've been writing about him. I've been tailing your articles, man. I know you love you some IQ. What do you think about him?
I like IQ because I've been talking about trust a lot. And Tom Thibodeau is a guy that usually runs a pretty tight ship, small rotation. And that's IQ. He's the 6th man right now. I think there's an argument to be made. He could be moved to a starting gig if the center spot doesn't really open up a little bit. Move Julius Randle to the center position, give them a little bit more versatility on the perimeter, defend a little bit quicker, switch on defense, because Quickley is a defensive guy. He's one of their best on the ball defenders, along with Quentin Grimes. So I do like Immanuel Quickley, but Denny's just been so good. I think I probably lean towards Denny only because of the cross categorial value that he brings, because they both do the same thing in terms of steals. But I do like the points and rebounds a little bit more with Denny, along with the field goal percentage that might be lacking for Immanuel Quickley.
So maybe this is just based on team need, right? Because based on what you're saying, these guys they're not miles apart. If you kept one or the other,
I
it
don't
wouldn't
think
be
so.
A big loss one way or another. Okay.
Good point.
All right. Then here's a good one here for you, Dan. Trade Harden for Lowry straight up. 1-for-1 trades, man. And that's a ginormous trade.
It is.
What are we thinking here?
I mean, I wouldn't be mad at it as long as you have the assist to cover James Harden. Like if you're tops in the league in assists, I would make this move absolutely. Because Lauri Markkanen is a star. He gives you points, rebounds, threes. He does everything. So he's one of those, like in baseball terms, he's a 5-tool player. So I would certainly make this trade if you have the assist to compensate for it.
Yeah, I think it's probably going to be based on your team here, because again, just like the IQ and Denny question, these guys are separated just barely here. On the season, Harden is ranked 14th in 9-cat, and Lowry is ranked 16th.
Yeah.
So absolutely, when it comes down to 1-for-1 trades, I think it's absolutely has to be based on your team need. Otherwise, you're just swapping names around, right?
Exactly. I agree with that.
All right.
Nice trade, though.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Absolutely. All right. We have time for a few more questions, I think, here. Dan, if you're ready to roll, let's see.
Oh, let's do it.
Let's do it, man. All right. Jakob Poeltl question. Poeltl, top 5 to be moved by the deadline. If he goes, what are the odds Spurs get a solid big in return to spoil Zach Collins' potential breakout? I mean, I don't know that we're going to get a potential Zach Collins breakout. I mean, we've had some quote unquote great moments from Collins, but like his career night earlier in the season was like 18 and 10. I mean, that's stuff that DeAndre Ayton, the disappointment, has been doing every night, and we're pissed off about it. So, I mean, is that like your ceiling for Zach Collins? We've seen what he can do with Poeltl out, and it's not anything that I'm going to write home about and jump for joy. I mean, what do you think here?
I'm with you. I don't know that I can call a Poeltl trade a potential breakout for Zach Collins, but I mean, he will be worthy of picking up in fantasy. Like he's certainly going to be one of the people that I would be jumping to add pretty quickly if that trade does go down, because he's going to luck into more minutes, more opportunity. He could be a viable big off your bench or in a utility spot for 12-team leagues. So while I temper expectations on a breakout, he'd certainly still be a contributor.
Agree with that. All right, let's see here. Here we go. Should I trade Cam Johnson for DeAnthony Melton? Melton, a guy that you just praised not too long ago. If not, who's a fair player to trade for? Dan, what do you think here?
I would do it. I think Cam Johnson right now, to me, honestly, is a sell high. Once Booker comes back, I think we're going to see some of that usage go down. Chris Paul has been pretty meh. So I assume he's going to turn it around a little bit, because the Suns are certainly in a position where they need to win some games and be better. So I think right now you're looking at Cam Johnson playing at an extreme high. I don't know if I would say a ceiling, but he's approaching it. I think this is a good time to sell for a player that I think has shown more fantasy viability over the course of his career than in DeAnthony Melton. And I think he does a little bit more in terms of across categories. So I would have no problems offering this trade up and going for Melton.
And I think we're both kind of the agreement here that Melton's defense is going to keep him on the court in a pretty steady way rest of season, right?
Definitely agree.
All right. Let's see here. Let's find us a good one here. Oh man, we're getting a lot of similar questions about TJ McConnell that we've answered already. Let's grab this one here. Is Dante DiVincenzo a hold for a 14-team head-to-head? Thanks, guys. Have a great day. What do you think about DiVincenzo? He's been, even with Steph back, he's been lights out off the bench. He's been really good.
The big ragu, I'm holding, especially in 14. I think you could hold him in 12, to be honest. So his minutes are pretty steady right now, and he's doing a little bit of everything. I mean, he had a career high 11 assists the other night when Steph was benched. And I think that's the risk with the Warriors, is that they're not going to be playing. They're going to be rested throughout the rest of the season. And anytime they are, you're going to see Jordan Poole and Dante DiVincenzo go off. So I think just off that alone, I think he's had standalone value, even though the Warriors are getting a little bit more healthier towards this middle part of the season.
Yeah, totally agree with you on that one. I had a couple of questions come across the chat saying, "Is this live or pre-recorded?" No, we are live. Yeah, I can. I'm not going to curse on here. I'm not going to say some goofy stuff. I will tell you, I just got the notification that the Texans are hiring DAmico Ryans after his as their new head coach.
That's what's up. That's actually pretty dope, man. Going back to his squad, I like it.
That's a great hire. 6-year deal after a couple of 1-year fizzles. So, yes, I love it. Yes, we are live. We just announced that here. You heard it.
Breaking news on a basketball podcast. We're letting you know what's going on in NFL live for you.
That's right. All right, let's go ahead. We got time for a couple more now. Brogdon and Depot for Zubat. Man, what's up with Zubat, dude? Answer me this, because at the beginning of the season, we thought this guy was just, he had 20
double machine, man. This dude was 20 rebound games and stuff, and now he's just nothing. He's just not playing well. I don't know what it is. I can't get it. It's a very interesting offer though, because you're offering 2 guards for the center. If you're in need of rebounds, I think you got to do it. Other than that, I mean, you're going to be losing on field goal percentage. I think Brogdon is a bit interesting because he's been very steady for much of the season. Depot, I like him because of where I feel Kyle Lowry is going to suffer. Depot is going to probably take some advantages there. That's tough. Zubat is in a rut right now, but I don't know that I'm buying this. I don't know that I would sell those guys that low for Zubat.
See, I think I would make this move. And again, this is based on your team need, right? Because Zubat is Depot's field goal percentage is garbage. Zubat is going to elevate you in that category. He's still a 10-10 guy, even though that's regressed a bit. Still a guy that's just under 1.5 blocks a game. That's going to be big for you if you need that. And I think Malcolm Brogdon, to me, is a sell high just because, recent injuries. Boston's been banged up here over the last couple of weeks, and especially with Marcus Smart being hurt for this extended period. So I like the move. If I need the big man stats, I would trade Brogdon and Depot for Zubat. I have no problem with it.
Yeah, I'm not opposed to it. It's an R. Yeah, it depends on the roster construction, but if you need a big, I think it's worthwhile. You're not giving up too many assets to get them, but yeah, I do think that Brogdon is a guy you may want to hold towards the fantasy playoffs, and Depot too. I think is going to get better as the season wears on.
Very interesting. All right, let's go for 2 more here. Do I keep riding Embiid and AD or trade them? I don't necessarily know that we need to answer this question directly, or just maybe comment on people's trade strategies. I mean, because for me, and I say this every week on the show, everybody has a price. I mean, unless this is even SGA and Joker, if you give up the right players, to me, everybody has a price.
Yeah.
I think this question is probably due to health concerns because Embiid, misses back-to-backs. He was just out recently. AD obviously missed a lot of time. So for me, if you can trade them high, go ahead. But rule of thumb is you're not trading a guy when his value is lowest. And when people have the most doubts about them, because then you're not going to get fair return. You trade them when they're on a heater, and you trade them before they start getting injured. You pull a Bill Belichick and trade them when their value is highest, and when something bad's about to happen.
Right.
Any differing opinions on that one?
No, I mean, I think you ride this out. I mean, the fact that you drafted Embiid and AD, those are your anchors of the team. Don't sweat it now. Don't stress about it. You've already weathered the storm with AD out. Embiid's been holding it down. And to be honest, I feel like Embiid is a player that I would love to trade for if there was an opportunity to. So,
Yeah.
especially with the way that he just went off against Jokic, I think you're only seeing the big not. Yeah, I mean, I'd just be hard pressed to make a move with those two anchoring your roster, and how rare it is to find bigs in this league that can do a little bit of everything. Like, they're both good free throw shooters. They can shoot the three, they block, they steal, like they do literally everything you want in fantasy. So you're trading away 2 top 10 players per game value. I wouldn't do that.
I agree with you there. We'll read this news off real quick because this is now we're starting a new
Wow.
trend. Sean Payton, new next Broncos coach. And I didn't get that push notification, but I did just have to look at it on my phone. And yes, Broncos reached deal with Saints for Sean Payton. I'm sure the contract is obscene and will make me feel really terrible about the salary that I'm making. So I won't even bother looking at that. All right, let's move on.
Not to mention that first round pick.
Yeah, no, no doubt.
Jeez.
All right, let's move on. Final question here. This guy has gotten a lot of chatter recently as well. Jabari Smith has a great playoff schedule if you start week 21, but he's killing my field goal percentage. Yeah, and there's not really much hope of that improving a ton. Is he worth holding on to? This question came up last week when I was on Josh Lloyd's show, and my opinion was, yes, hold on to him because I'm not sure who else off the waiver wire you'll be able to get. And Josh said, yeah, but I think he's in that discussion because where can the improvements come from? So I'm still a bit torn on Jabari Smith, but I still lean into holding on to him just because a guy that can block shots, hit threes, get rebounds, and especially if you're punting field goal percentages, maybe some people did. I mean, what do you think about Jabari Smith? He's pretty polarizing for fantasy right now.
Yeah, he is. I think you touched on it. I think the versatility is something that I'm most interested in Jabari Smith. Kind of a poor man's, a better shooting Evan Mobley, but he's not Evan Mobley. Yeah. But I do see the potential there in what he does on the floor, being able to stretch the floor and also play defense. Doesn't rank well in fantasy right now because of that field goal percentage. But I think the Houston Rockets is a team that you'll want to invest in later on in the season, especially with young players. So I wouldn't give up on him yet. I would continue to hold. The only competition he's going to have for minutes is really with KJ Martin and or Tari Eason. If Eric Gordon's moved, that's only going to benefit those guys, those younger guys, even more. So I would hold on, even though he's not great on a per game value. I think, looking at the playoff schedule, and it's great that you're already looking ahead. This is a guy that you'll want to hold on to because I think he'll be useful in the later run.
And so just from a high level overview, I mean, context does matter in fantasy hoops, right? It's never just black and white. I mean, so as you mentioned, invest in the Houston Rockets. If Jabari Smith was on another team, let's say he was on, Boston Celtics, for instance, are you holding on to him, or are you thinking, well, maybe with all this competition for minutes, the risk just isn't worth the reward?
Yeah, I know. I think that's certainly the factor, right? Like, I don't want a guy that's going to be in a logjam competing for minutes down the stretch, and he's already getting 30 minutes. He's starting. I don't see that situation changing. So, I think, he's hitting the rookie wall. There aren't many. I think there's only 3 fantasy rookies this year there's only 3 rookies in fantasy that are within the top 100. And Paolo's not even one of them. And Paolo's a beast. So there's that right mix of efficiency and production. And I think Jabari Smith will eventually get there. And with Kevin Porter Jr. out, that's just that's more usage of to him or in others. I think it's going to be spread amongst the starters, but that's one less person that's getting significant minutes. So yeah, I'd be hard pressed to drop him right now. I think this is a good time to ride the wave, find another player off waivers that can offset that field goal percentage, and I think he should be good.
All right, so we're holding on to Jabari Smith. All right, guys, that's going to do it for today. If we didn't answer your questions, obviously hit me up on Twitter at Zak the Monster. I'm sure Dan probably feels the same way. I know Dan gets a lot of questions on Twitter, and he's usually very good to get back to people on those. Dan, thanks so much for stopping by, man. This was a pleasure. This was long overdue.
Yes, sir.
Tell the folks where we can find you and what you're working on over at Yahoo.
Yeah, you can find me on Twitter at Dan Titus, and working on weekly risers and fallers, waiver wire pickups. I do 3 articles a week. Also do a couple of video shows where I'm explaining my buys and sells. So just check out my work there, and collabing with NBC, man. I have a weekly podcast with Raphael Johnson, Roundball Stew. So make sure you check that out tomorrow, 1 Eastern on Twitch or wherever you get your podcast. So yeah, man. Thank you, Zach, for having me on. Always great chopping it up with you about basketball. You are a savant, sir, and love the work that you do. And yeah, man, let's do this again.
Yes, sir. We will be happy to have you back on. Appreciate your time, Dan. And we are out. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you next week, next Thursday for the trade deadline show, not next Tuesday. Next Thursday, we will have Adam King and Noah Rubin on to chat about the trade deadline. Have a great one, guys.
Peace.